Made $1 million and I can't go back. Got a lot of jewelry on me, man, can't hold that. So ask him better, tell him that I ain't so crack. Know your money long when your people can't fold that. I'm ballin', yeah. My mama told me that did my calling. I keep that stick, I don't do no brawling. Open out the doors and let them all in here. Yeah, they all in here. Big dog, we come out the game for big dog. Heavy paddock, don't break my wrist off.
Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, boys and girls, and anybody else associated with this amazing sport we call rugby, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and welcome. I'm Halde Pottinger. You join me with my lifelong heterosexual partner.
I'm John.
Okafor. And hey, we're here to give a weekly roundup of all things rugby. Of course, we're 2 rounds in to the 2021 Six Nations. I think we can all agree what a Six Nations it's been. You know, all of us were so scared that it wasn't going to happen, and we were just praying to every single god up there, a la Odin.
We were praying
every morning that Six Nations is going to happen, and it has. And John, I don't know about you, but I think already it has totally given us exactly what we wanted. It has delivered.
No, I mean, absolutely. You know, the games have been really, really interesting, apart from when England are playing. But in terms of entertainment and just excitement, I think it's really, really good, man. I think we had the Scotland-Wales game, which in my opinion could be one of the test games of the year. The drama, the cards, the flair. We got look at some of the finishes from some of the players. We got Louis Zamit's finish. So I think that game really, for me, that could be go down as one of the games of the year. We've got lackluster England. For me, as an England fan, it is so frustrating that we can't really just get ourselves going. But hopefully that Italian game is going to start giving us some momentum. And we've got the exciting French, who just seem to throw the ball about, who are probably the form team at the moment. So it's been everything we wanted from the Six Nations. Hopefully, speaking of the French, they've had a COVID scare and a COVID outbreak. Hopefully it doesn't compromise the competition. I'm sure we'll touch on it later on. But, you know, I think the Fallow week has just probably come at the right time. If there was going to be a little COVID outbreak in terms of the isolations, I think if there was going to be a time for it to happen, we've fallen in that golden window to unfortunately say.
Yeah, man, absolutely, and hopefully again we're back to praying that hopefully the French will come back. We've now heard where we're now recording this on Wednesday, so you guys might be already updated by the time you're listening to this. But at the moment, we've heard that 3 of the French staff have been tested positive for COVID. Obviously, we've got Galthie, we have another non-playing French member of staff, and we have Servat. So they've got it, and they're all self-isolating just now. It's interesting, they didn't show any symptoms, so it just shows how important these regular testings are. But yeah, we're absolutely praying that it's not going to disrupt. But Joe, what do you think? Because obviously we saw this happen in the autumn internationals, the autumn cup, if you like, with Fiji. And what happened then, interestingly enough, was when they couldn't fulfill their early fixtures. I think they managed to get 1 game in, didn't they? But they didn't. They couldn't fulfill all those fixtures. And what did they do to those fixtures? They awarded the points to the opposition. So do you think we could see a postponement of all the games, which is then going to run into the club scene? It's going to make it messy. Or if for some, hopefully not, if for some reason the French cannot fulfill their match next weekend against Scotland, will Six Nations, will they award Scotland 4 points?
So it's quite an interesting topic. I think in the Premiership they're doing like a 4-2 split. So the team that is unfortunately not playing but doesn't have the COVID break gets the 4 points, and the team that does get the COVID outbreak gets the 2 points. So it'll be interesting what the Six Nations do and how they tackle it. For for me, it's a tricky situation because with the Fiji, like they lost control of it. It was throughout the squad. So the issue now is once they start doing like the trace back, the contact trace, and work out how far into the squad. Because the issue now is if it gets into the playing squad and it's got into the core of the playing squad, that's 10 days. That's 10 days that the team can't train. So they're playing next week. The game's in 10 days anyway. So they're 10 days out. They won't be prepared. So forfeiting the fixture does become the next likely outcome. Hopefully, this is just an isolated incident. The players and staff are safe and are wishing well. But in terms of how the Six Nations go about it, it's really, really, really uncharted territory because we were praying to get the green light. It's got the green light. Now we've had an outbreak. I remember, like recently, the French sport minister was hesitant about having French players going on international duty, and he was going to pull the whole thing. Now this is come about. It's now proved him right. You know, so how they want to go about it in terms of what they're going to go, what's the next process, what's the next steps for them is going to be very, very interesting. So hopefully we do get our Six Nations. Hopefully there are no games postponed, and you know, we keep going on. Like, we don't want this run into club fixtures because we know how the boards are. We know how PRL and Top 14, they hate international fixtures coming into their club season. So how they go about it, if they ask the clubs, can we keep the international players for an extra 2 weeks? You know, they talk about compensation. Clubs want to be then the money starts getting involved, and when money gets involved, everyone has an agenda.
Well, that's it. And when we're talking about, you know, the three guys, and, you know, I think everyone from RugbyPass throws all their best wishes to everybody for speedy recovery, but they're not showing any symptoms. But one guy who you may thought was symptomatic, if you like, was French captain Oliver at that press conference when he looked absolutely exhausted, knackered. He's setting that mark in the Six Nations at the moment. I think he's setting his mark. There's talks about he was taking painkillers, you know, going above and beyond for your country. France are looking amazing, and we've heard there's actually a few posts in the RugbyPass videos last few months, Johnny Beattie and the likes talking about Fabien Galthie, and that he is he's a master and he doesn't take any shit from anybody. But we've seen that through the French performance. We've seen lots of players that were maybe getting there, but they've now stepped up and talked to guys like Big Wilmsa. He's really come on as a big player. We've got Jalbert. He's coming in. He's getting, obviously, with Tomat not there, it's his time to maybe try. We've got Terry Toma. He doesn't even get a start. Obviously, we've got Vakatawa. He's not even playing at the moment. But obviously, all the spotlights are on Dupont at number 9, who has nailed himself, I think, at the moment as a world class. Not even number 1, 9. I think that's a given. I think he's almost going into the next bracket of one of the top players in the world.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the point is brilliant. I think how he's come about in the last 6-7 months, you know, in the club scene, now on test series, he's exciting. We're not talking about the conversation we're having with him. We're not talking about the best 9 in the game. We're talking about even a top 5 player or just period now. You know, now you're having the conversations. Now you're bringing him into the Farrell conversations, the Marrow conversations, the Stuart Hoggs of the world. We're talking, is this guy one of the best players flat out in the world? In my mind, I think if we're doing it on form, it's hard to look past him. He's in the top 3 conversation if we're looking at form. Now, the next challenge is bring the consistency with it. You know, really set the tone. Really be the guy that's setting the benchmark for the rest of the team to follow. You know, be the guy that's like the X factor. When the game needs that spark, when you need to make something happen, be that guy and be that guy consistently. Then you're talking about, hold on a minute, this could be the best player in the world right now.
Exactly. So we really bigged up France because it's hard not to big them up at the moment. They're just playing some fantastic rugby. I wouldn't be doing my brothers and sisters any good without mentioning Scotland. We'll move on to Scotland for a wee bit there, John. Obviously, follow me on Instagram at Halde Pottinger. Follow me there, and I'll be uploading videos, my thoughts about the Scottish team coming into the France game. We've had 2 weekends of rugby, and it almost just typifies Scotland. We go down to Twicker's HQ, and people are thinking that we're going to have a promising Six Nations. We've had a promising Six Nations for like the last 8 years, and we'll say, Scotland might do something. They might do something. It's never really worked. So that first weekend when we went to Twickenham, and so we saw what happened there, and we just ran the show. We've spoken about that before, but this last weekend at Wales, although we were up at 1 point, 17 points to 3, I did not feel as comfortable watching as when the score was like maybe 2 or 3 points in it against England. And obviously, 54th minute comes, Scotland, we have to do something. 2 points behind, we have to do something. And Xander goes and gets himself red carded. That's been a massive talking point this week in Scottish rugby, and possibly in British rugby, world rugby. The Xander red card. Now he's had his discipline yesterday, or today was it? Yesterday.
Yesterday.
And he's been given basically a 4-week ban. He's basically been told he's no longer in this year's Six Nations. He would have been. He's in the conversation for Lions. Warren Gatland, I'm sure he would have been in the conversation, and he's been given this ban. Let's talk about what happened, because we've got Wynn, man of the match the weekend before, and he's over hands on the ball. Stuart Hogg is doing all he can to budge him, but it's going to be hard. And I think what's done Xander is he's spotted him from afar, so he's had that moment to choose and to think, what am I going to do? And he's chosen something that was probably the wrong choice. That did not help him. They were talking about mitigating factors. Wynn was kind of rising at the time. Was that Hogg pulling him? But he had his shoulder tucked in. And as hard as it is for me to admit it, it is a red card. By the book, it is a red card. Harsh. Some referees might not have given it. Carl Dixon, the TMO at the time, certainly wouldn't have given it. But I think if we're doing it by the letter of the law, we can't really argue with it.
Yeah, I think. And speaking of the law, for me, it's we need to get some sort of clarity and consistency with it. Like you say, the problem with the mitigating factors for me is there are so many different mitigating factors. It changes every week. We had the red card in the Ireland game, and he had 3 weeks. Obviously, Xander this round pleaded not guilty, and they've written him off for the entire Six Nations. So we need to get some sort of blanket consistency in terms of what are red cards, what are yellow cards. Have them just make the referees be consistent with it, because there's just too much openness and too much leeway for things to be interpreted. Adam Wynne Jones rising, Stuart Hogg pulling him up. Is there time for him to change his body shape? So it's really tough, and I don't envy the referees and the TMOs at the moment with all the laws and everything regarding the head at the moment and tackle and rucks. So for me, it's a really, really tough job they're doing. But I think we can help them, or World Rugby and the unions can help them by providing some sort of concrete framework that they can keep referring to that will bring the consistency in the game. That's, for me, the only way we can get some sort of clarity on it.
Yeah, and it needs to be fed back into the countries, it needs to be fed back into the clubs so they can actually be taught this from grassroots level. We should be teaching the kids this, guys. Don't run into a ruck with your shoulder tucked when there's somebody going, because something bad's going to happen. So before we kind of wrap things up, John, we need to talk about England. And we need to talk about, again, similar to Scotland, but maybe just coming around the other way. We saw a very lackluster performance against Scotland. Scotland, to be fair, were immense. That's probably the best anyone has seen them play for the last 20 years or something. They were incredible. And England, as Eddie Jones states, England couldn't do anything with the ball because they only got 25% of the possession. But against the Italians, they put up a big score. And at certain moments, they looked good. Going into to Wales. What do you see happening?
Again, it depends. I think England are like on the other end of the curve. I think we are starting to build momentum. Like you said, Scotland probably came in good. Hopefully they don't fall off, but you know, like we're not sure what would happen. So I think England are starting to find their feet. Eddie Jones recently said about how he thought England were a little bit under aroused, something like 20% under aroused in terms of just being like ready, match ready, and being like ready, like fired up. So hopefully with the fallow week, they've got time just to regather and actually just take a state of affairs. You know, losing Jack, we wish him well at RugbyPass. You know, that's a big blow for the team. So just making sure that mentally and physically they're ready to go. I think last 2 games for me, I have felt England have been a bit lackluster. Obviously the Italian score, I mean, we ran up a nice score, but if you look at the game in terms of how professional the England performance was, I mean, there were times where we were a bit slack. You know, we let Italy back into the game in places they shouldn't really be having a chance to get back into the game. So when we play Wales now next weekend, we gotta be tight. We gotta be slick. It's gotta be a good performance because lackluster will get exposed. You know they've got an exciting back three. You've got Lewis Rees-Zammit, who at 20 years old, man of the match. Look, he's absolutely tearing it up. So Wales, for me, they are I'll probably be the outsiders. Like they're slowly going away about their business. So it'd be interesting to see how England tackle the Welsh next weekend.
Yeah, and me personally, I can see England putting on a score against Wales. In fact, especially if they keep 15 players on the pitch. Me personally, I think Wales have been a wee bit lucky that they've had the red cards in both matches because both times they were behind. Both times it looked like the other team was going to had the momentum, they're going to go on and win. So we're also Billy Burns sadly kicking that ball out for the Irish. Who knows what would happen if he'd placed it in the 5 and they got a driving try. So I can see England putting on a good score against Wales. France, Scotland, I can see it being an incredibly interesting game given that the disruption in the French camp, they've all been told to stay in their rooms this week. So no stretching, no bonding time, no light training, nothing. So on the contrary, Scotland will be licking their lips at this, and they'll be doing some extra things. Finn Russell's there; he knows a lot of the French boys. It's going to be really interesting. Final question to you, John: with the Lions tour coming up, hopefully still coming up this summer, 2 players. One player who's really kind of come out of the shadows, bolted into that team, a surprise, and one who's maybe done them a disservice and might be coming out your squad.
For me. Someone that's probably I've been surprised by last couple of games, and I think he's doing really well. I'm a fan of Hamish Watson, you know.
Yay!
I'm a fan of. I'm a big fan. I think he does a lot of dirty work.
Yeah.
That England game, I think he was immense.
Yeah.
For me now, it becomes does he become consistent across the entirety of the Six Nations, and in terms of how he goes about his business, I'm a big fan of him. I think he's someone that just does his thing under the radar. But in terms of like the fundamentals or stuff that isn't picked up on the stat sheets, he's always there. You know, so I think Hamish Watson he has a chance. For me, people might raise their eyebrows at. I wouldn't say he's played himself out of the squad, but he probably needs a big 4 games to really silence the critics. Is Owen Farrell?
Aye, definitely.
I think there are a lot of critics out. I'm a fan of Owen Farrell, so I'm not saying he's out of the squad. He's not out of the squad, far from. But in terms of going forward in the Six Nations, a lot of people are asking questions about how informed is Owen Farrell right now. You know, you got Finn Russell who's tearing it up. I mean, if he continues the way he's going, Warren Gatland will have a hard time justifying why Finn isn't starting at 10 and while Farrell is.
Yeah.
So those are the sort of dilemmas they are Owen Farrell's causing by not being being so lackluster at the moment. So for me, he needs a big free game. Sorry, he needs a big free game forward.
I'd agree with them. And to add on to that, so far, I know we had that amazing finish, but Johnny May, he hasn't played, I don't think, the standards he was playing before Six Nations started. I'm a massive fan of Johnny May. He scored that try, and again, there's a big debate during the week, maybe more so in Scotland than in England. Was it a try, was it not? Jumping over, then we've got the argument. You know, if say there's Cannon there at the side of that picture, if he was to come in and take Johnny May out mid-air, would he be done for tackling somebody off their feet? But that amazing finish, of course, an amazing finish. But I want to see him on the ball more. He had a couple of drop balls against Scotland. He did beat as many players as we're normally used to seeing him beat. So I'd love to see a big game from Johnny May, because I think if he's on form, he is one of the best wingers. So I want to see a big game from him. I want to see a big game from Elliot Daly as well.
Yeah.
And I think a surprise package. No surprise from anybody in Scotland, but a surprise one in Britain. Big Duhan van der Merwe, or Spring Scott, who's going to... He's played in both games. He's played very well, very solid against England. Took his try and a world-class finish. Any other winger, they might not have beat 5-6 players. He did. Against Wales, maybe underutilised, but he's just going to keep stronger. He's only played 4 or 5 games for Scotland, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the plane either.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's wrapping up, John.
We're wrapping it up.
So keep following me. You can follow me on Instagram. You can get me at Halde Pottinger. You can also get me on TikTok if you're down with the young ones. Get me on TikTok at Halde Pottinger. I don't know what I'm doing there. I'm lost on TikTok at the moment, but you'll find me there too. John's got some better socials than I do.
Make sure you follow me on Instagram at John Okafor __ for all things rugby, general life. Make sure you check out my YouTube channel at John Okafor. Again, same thing, just all things rugby and everything else in general life.
Nice. So there you go, guys. From me and from John, that's our Wednesday wound up complete. I will catch you later. Cheers for now.
Take care.